Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is such a pleasure to welcome you, Alcir. It is very fascinating for me to encounter a business leader coming from Brazil to the US and, working in, a top organization, if I can say that.
Mhm.
Um, I am interested in the podcast that we are going through now to really think about what technology and especially what the disruption that AI is causing is doing to leaders, right? And you have been in some ways quite pioneering in your work because you pioneered WhatsApp business in the US, which was a category that didn't exist when you started. For me this was very fascinating because as a European and of course of Indian origin, WhatsApp and WhatsApp business is like the way that I've been,
Yeah.
doing not just personal stuff but business for a really long time. So whenever I went to the US and to know that there's still text and not WhatsApp was
Mhm.
fascinating, right? And you relocated from Sao Paulo to New York because of that. Now, I'm just curious if you can track a little bit about your, let's say, trajectory in terms of AI deployment and in terms of your role at Meta. How would it go?
Awesome. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you. Um, I love your podcast, and it's a real pleasure to be here and speak about my experience and give some insights to other leaders as well. So, to your point about AI, Meta is a big company. I work at Meta. It's been 9 years already, and it's been the core and the main pillar of everything we've been doing since the beginning. So back in the day, we used to call it machine learning, and now it's AI. The first research with AI is back in the I would say the 70s or 60s. So it's not a new technology per se, but recently, because of the new processors and the computers being way more powerful, we are able to do better and most, I would say, faster things. But at the end of the day, AI is just a bunch of calculations, mathematical models running probabilistic models. So what AI does is basically tell you what is the most probably an accurate answer to a question you give it. That's it. There's no human component, there's no judgment. It's just a bunch of code and mathematical models. My particular experience, as you mentioned, I'm Brazilian, and as in India and Europe, WhatsApp is everything in Brazil. And I worked before working at Meta, worked in the leading telco company in Brazil, and we were the first to launch a carrier plan with free WhatsApp. So, and I was responsible for the go-to-market of that offer. It was like 15 years ago, maybe. So I've been working with this for a long time, and I had a chance to make it available for basically everyone in Brazil in a free telco like carrier plan. Now we've been building, and I've been building products from scratch with the team. And what this has been taught me so far is that people generally think about AI as something that's going to make their work faster. And this is a reality. But you cannot mistake the real thing about AI with just like buying a faster horse. And that's precisely what many people are doing. So the main lesson I've been getting on this incredible journey from like Brazil, US, working with AI, early stage products, is that we cannot think of AI just as a thing to make us move faster. If you do that, you are just going to have a slightly better version of the same bottlenecks that you are facing right now. So I would say that this is the main lesson. And the arc behind it is that constantly I push myself to reinvent myself. So I took international relations at college. I published a book on that. I was going to make a career. And then I decided to move to telco to work with sales and go-to-market and product development. Then I moved to Meta to work with technology. And recently I saw like everything that was going on AI. I saw an open role and I decided to do it. I think this is fundamentally the main skill for people who are thinking about AI right now is adaptability. And not only adaptability per se, but how we are going to use what's going on to transform the way we think and the way we produce things, not necessarily to do things faster. And I know you write a lot about it, about expats and people moving from one country to another. And I think this is a real thing for us, like people who are who had the opportunity to work across different countries and cultures to learn different things. Now we are living kind of the same with AI in a global scale. So everyone is experiencing the same thing that I experienced before, that you and your family probably experienced few years ago. So I would say that this is, in a nutshell, the arc, my experience, how I've been using it, and my
Right.
initial
And I
thoughts
love the
about AI.
analogy that you're drawing of moving between countries and with AI, but moving between maybe languages, right? We speak in a particular
Yes.
way and now we need to speak in another way. And it's like, the development in AI is like its own, being on its own little planet, because there have been enough
Hmm.
conversations that I have been in where people will not really name the elephant in the room. They will
Yeah.
talk around it, they will use acronyms, and there will be people in many side conversations who will then say, I'm not sure what actually I agreed to. Right. So that's quite fascinating, because it is really like, listening probably to Brazilian Portuguese at least versus, Portugal Portuguese, where I was last week, by the way. So it's quite fascinating to draw that parallel. Now, you're working, Alcir, with AI products that most people have probably not heard of, right? What do you understand about how businesses actually adopt AI versus how they say they will do it, right? So, leaders, what do you see they are actually doing versus what they say they're doing? Oh, I lost your voice.
Okay, can you hear me
You're
now?
back. You're back. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so this is a great question because in all of our conversations, the things that people speak out loud are generally about revenue, risk, and making costs better, like reduced costs.
Mhm.
So people think about AI in this three different ways. How I'm going to make more money, how I'm going to cut costs, or specifically, what are the risks that are involved in using AI? Because we know those are probabilistic models, they make mistakes. We need to be prepared to do that. Those are like the conversations that typically happen, and we start with it. But underneath, I see two different things. The first one is, okay, I'm going to use it. What's going to happen if this thing really works? We don't know if it's going to work. That's it. Most of the companies are experimenting with it, but they are not having real value out of it. There is a new study from MIT that says that only 5% of all the AI experiments that they researched had real measurable outcomes.
Yeah.
So people are using AI. Companies are using AI. The adoption is huge. It's part of our lives. But most of them don't know exactly what's going to happen if it really works. And the fear that they have is simple. For leaders, what is going to happen with my team, the team reporting to me? Will I have to cut them? What this dynamics will look like? And also they fear about their own roles because the authority now has moved. We don't need to be the person in the room who knows everything. We need to be the person in the room who knows how to make the best decisions. The models are changing rapidly. It's impossible to keep up with them. So these are like the things that happen. Okay, everything is changing. What can I do to reduce my costs, to make more money? What are the risks involved with it? These are the conversations that no one is afraid of having. But underneath, after a few meetings, you will start having listening and hearing these questions like, okay, what are you seeing across other companies? How people are going to work after that? What is going to happen with my own role? So these are the things that I've been hearing in my conversations with businesses and leaders.
True, right? I mean, there is a lot of uncertainty associated with what this means. And of course, that
Yeah,
viral Citrix report a couple of months back that you might have heard saying, yes, if the cost of the services keep reducing and jobs keep getting cut, who is even going to use all the services that you're optimizing for, right? Because there is
yeah,
no disposable income, and that can really impact, how we are building the future of our economy. And it is really, in some ways, scary to see how fast we go on this bandwagon without
Yeah.
knowing what the end point will be, right? But it's almost as if
Hmm.
there is a race, and if you don't run, you will be left behind. So we are all sort of
Yeah.
racing towards some, I don't know, like imaginary endpoint that nobody really knows what that endpoint is. And that is really quite scary. I mean, in your
Yes.
own usage, and I imagine, with all those reinventions, you've probably also used AI, not just at work, but also personally. And I'm just
Yes.
wondering, was there anything insightful that you gathered from, let's say, a personal usage of AI tools that working with it
Yes.
professionally had not?
Yes. Another great question. Um, as I said, AI, typically the way you think about it is, okay, I'm going to be faster in doing things. But what I've been really experiencing with my own usage, that in a business situation, maybe it wouldn't be that clear, is that AI now allows us to do basically anything. For example, I'm not an engineer. I didn't study at college how to code, for example. And now I develop applications, websites, and things that, I don't know, a couple of years ago, it would be impossible for me to think about it. Or I would need to spend a lot of money to learn it, or a lot of time to actually understand how those things really work. Now I'm able to do it. And at the end of the day, I'd say that the main headline is there's no excuse anymore to get started with something. To get started was a barrier back in the day for everyone. Now that barrier doesn't exist anymore. AI is a personal assistant that basically knows everything available, like all the information that the humanity has produced. We have access to that in our hands in seconds. It can analyze data, it can build reports, it can build applications, apps, whatever. So the excuse to get started with things isn't there anymore. And that's my main lesson by using AI in my personal situation, in my personal life, day-to-day life, that I'm transposing, I'm carrying on to my business situation as well. And that's how I started, for example, to develop internal tools. We had some bottlenecks internally in some processes that were hard to do in a manual way. And I said, okay, I can get started to do that right now. And I did it. Anyone can do that right now. That's the main lesson.
Thank you for that. Is there a mistake you made, or probably a belief that you held about how leaders and teams actually use and adapt to AI? But then, doing the work that you do of taking products from concept to adoption in the real world, I imagine, has now forced you to rethink this.
Yes. We were trained in our entire careers, and that's how humanity has been thinking and building things for centuries, in a simple framework. You need to size or to measure what is the potential gain, the ROI of something. I'm going to put some money here and I'm going to get back something. If this is efficient, or I think I'm going to make more out of it than the initial thing the initial effort or resources I'm putting in, it will be a good thing. Then starting small, and if it works, you deploy it. This is how we've been trained to do. This is not the reality with AI anymore. And the reason for that is that we don't have enough information to size the markets, to size the opportunity anymore. Everything is changing so fast. It's like an analogy that I like is think about like a city, and you have the map of that city. But the city is experiencing a series of huge earthquakes. So that map you have basically doesn't work anymore. If you only use the map to go to a point to another between these earthquakes, you'll be lost. So how we can think about it? Going back to that framework I mentioned you, this is a mistake that I had in the beginning, and I see many companies having. The AI has like shifted the way we need to think about things. So do not size the opportunity or think about something that you cannot measure anymore because the capabilities are almost close to infinity, and then do a small test and then deploy. This is not the way it works anymore. The way it's been working, and the best way I would say, is when there is something new about AI, or when you want to move something to like adoption, Pick up someone in your team who are curious. Give it to them. Let's see what they do with it. After a couple of weeks, and you know your team, you know the people, you realize that they are using it and they are building things that you couldn't even imagine before. These people are going to influence the others to do the same. And then after a few weeks, you will have an idea about what these things can actually give you, the gains that you're getting out of it. And then you can go back to that previous framework. Do not start with that. That's the main mistake and the main things that I experienced in the beginning. And right now I'm not doing that anymore.
I love that analogy, right? It is. I think we all are probably in organizations, or most of us, some of us outside of it, but still experiencing that earthquake, right? And we do not
Yes.
know how the tiles will fall after the earthquake. So it's really irrelevant. I mean, yes, the map sort of gives you a visual of how something might look like, but what is happening as the earth is shaking? I mean, who can predict that,
Yes.
right? So that's
Hmm.
that's that's really fascinating. And because of this feeling that the solid ground is moving under their feet, I think a lot of leaders are very insecure, right? And
Yes.
I have privately, never publicly, spoken to leaders who might be questioning their own relevance, in the age of this earthquake, if we can call it, right?
Hmm.
What advice or what tips would you give them, to those leaders who are quietly questioning their own relevance?
Yes. I've been hearing that a lot as well. Like what is relevant right now for a leader? And one thing that people ask me a lot is, do you think AI will replace humans at scale? Do you think that we won't have jobs anymore? Stuff like that. I don't believe in that. Humans still are relevant and still will be relevant, but this relevance has shifted. Um, Prior to joining Meta, I was a leader, senior leader in the telco space in Brazil. And I remember going to meetings, and while leading my team, they expected me to know everything. And we were trained to either know as best we can possibly know, but also how to hide it. If I don't know it, I'm gonna pretend that I know, and I'm gonna convince people that I know it, and then I'll figure that out. This is how leaders have been thinking about their career and their behavior forever. This is how humans behave. But now it's not possible to compete with AI. AI knows everything more than any human being on Earth, and it can run things faster enough that if you try to compete with that, you fail. And people are starting to realize that. Like, well, I have something here that tells me everything. This leader, this person is saying something, but I can use ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Meta AI, whatever, and I can get a response. Actually, he's not saying something that I trust. This is the main thing. Leaders need to move away from this. Like, okay, I know everything, because now the authority relies on judgment. That's the best thing that leaders can think about. People are not. Maybe some people are still expecting it, but really soon they will realize that we should not expect leaders to know everything, but we should expect leaders to judge whatever the AI is putting in front of them. Leaders to tell us what is the best path to move
And
forward.
I'll say, how do you judge something that you do not understand enough? Because that is a space in which I actually find a lot of the leaders, right? It's not that they
Yes.
are not aware about AI. Of course they are. And many of them are experimented, probably even, gone and created a product themselves. But the judgment that comes because of experience and sometimes even
Yes.
intuitively, because of the fast rate of disruption, there has been
Yes.
no time for leaders, especially, I'm not speaking about those who are native to AI, right, but those who came into that, let's say, a bit later, so not the early adopters but the laggards. And a lot of organizations and leaders fall there, right? How do they show
Hmm.
judgment when they do not understand the earthquake?
Experience. And you raise a point that will be a fundamental shift to our educational system moving forward as well. The way we learned how to judge things was basically by repetition
Yeah.
and by making mistakes. So I remember when I was an analyst in the beginning of my career, you probably remember something like that. Everyone has the same story. When you did something, let's say an analysis, you shipped it and it was completely wrong. Numbers are wrong. And then you got like an angry call for your from your manager. Hey, what is this? And then you take a look, review your work again and said, okay, it was wrong. I need to do it again. It doesn't happen anymore with AI, like
Nothing is going
so.
to be completely wrong, right?
Yes. And so think about the analysts right now. People
Mhm.
leaving college, for example, they won't have this process of getting experience, making mistakes, learning by mistakes, so they can judge things. So to address your question, how do I judge things based on my experience? If I don't have enough experience, I'm going to research it. And this is something that AI can do for us. So, for example, every time I have a meeting or something important, like participating in your podcast, I ask my personal assistant, my agent, to build a dossier for me. So to prepare me for everything. Back in the day, maybe we had like executive execs, like assistants or someone to do that for us, or we had to pay someone to do it, or spend hours and hours in research. Now we can do that. For us, leaders, people more experienced, we are smart enough and have experience enough to see what AI is putting in front of us and tell, okay, this is right, this is not right. This
Mm.
needs to be reframed or not. What I'm more concerned about are the people who are coming, like the young people. I have two kids, for example. So I'm really concerned about how they are going to make these judgment calls because we still have those experienced leaders. And AI, by the way, is not replacing those roles. Senior roles haven't moved since the AI
Boom.
thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, we are seeing only like junior roles being at risk. So try to learn, trust your gut, trust your experience, and assume that we need to remember this. AI is not magic. AI doesn't think. It's just a bunch of mathematical calculations that will put in front of you something that is likely to be true. The better the model, the more likely it is to be true. But we need to rely on our judgment to say, okay, this is actually something good or not.
My favorite question, and the last question to you, Alcir, is what is something you understand intellectually about AI and about AI and leadership in particular, but you cannot see it clearly enough to act on it yourself? I know it's a bit of a trick question.
Yes, let me think about it. Okay, so technology is moving fast. We can't keep up with the technology that is coming. Every single day, I see a new AI model. I see a new application. There is a profile on Instagram that I follow that gives like a summary of what's been happening, what happened over the past 7 days. And it's insane, the pace of innovation and technology. Our brains, our system, we as human beings, we won't ever catch up. We won't ever keep up with everything. And the models are becoming pretty much equal to each other, like similar. The marginal gains now with new models and new system are really marginal, small. For 99% of people, whatever the tool they use now would be good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, for their use cases. Um, so I would say that people don't rebuild their sense of their own worth at release speed, and we shouldn't value ourselves thinking about that.
Say that again. I missed the word. They should not build a sense of their self worth,
Yeah, their own worth
their own
based on
worth.
the
Yeah.
release speed.
Oh
If I'm
yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
value,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I get it.
yeah,
I get you. Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah, that would be my thought about it. At the end
yeah.
of the day, we are human beings, and
Mm.
we need to value it, and we need to understand it. So do our best with the resources we have. Understand that things are moving and changing. Don't try
And
to
is
use
this
this.
something, Alcir, that you intellectually understand but have not been able to do yourself? Like, is this also that space where you your sense of self-worth maybe is dependent on how quickly you're catching up to the next model, to the next release? Is that something you understand but cannot actually practice?
This is a trap,
It's
and
a trap, yeah.
and that's my point. It's easy to be trapped to think like that.
Mm.
Every time I see that those posts in that profile I mentioned you, my first reaction is to think, oh my God, I need to study this more. Oh
Mm.
my God, what's going to happen with this? And then immediately I need to push myself to think, okay, calm down. I cannot value myself on doing that. So this is a personal training, a personal
It's really a
mindset that I'm
mindset,
trying
right?
to,
It's really a
yes,
mindset shift. This is very, very insightful. Thank you.
yes,
Thank you so much for that, and particularly that last response, because it's so easy to collapse your sense of self-worth if you feel as if you're not catching up with the latest in technology. And I think we have
yes,
different versions of doing it, but I'm sure that a lot of us do that. Thank you for your
yes.
time, Alcir. This has been
Thank
very
you.
insightful.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank you. Have a
for the
very nice.
opportunity.
Yeah.